Yeah, I started at King Edward School in 1986. I was in Exeter University at that time, and came back from rugby training one day, saw this advert on the wall for a PE job at a school that I didn't even know where Lytham St Anne's was. Anyhow, I rang up the headmaster at the time, was David Heap, and got on a train. A few days later, arrived and stayed in the Ensley Hotel. I can remember walking down Clifton Drive on a really cold day and walking to a school and looked across. It was actually Queen Mary School. So I had to walk a bit further, and then I turned right and my breath was taken away by those fantastic fields that I saw in front of me. I walked down to the end of the lane, end of the drive, and through the door, and was just fascinated by this amazing school. And I'd seen nothing like the schools that I'd ever been to before, and walked in, and the first thing that smacked me in the face was how friendly everybody was. I walked down to the office where the secretaries were, which is where Miss Heaps is at the moment, and the ladies in there were so nice to me. And actually I turned up, I didn't have a jacket as normal, and I had long permed hair at that time. They were really friendly, and then actually ushered me into here where I had my interview. So I started off teaching PE, 1/3 PE and 2/3 maths, because I came for a PE job, and the headmaster at the time told me that there was another job going. Did I fancy that? Because I was a maths graduate as well. So I said yes, and he promised me that he would change that timetable, and he was good to his promise, and I eventually taught 2/3 PE and then 1/3 maths. And then as the years went on, the old head, David Heap, and then the new head, Julian Wilde, offered me little extensions to my roles. So it was head of year, year 8 I think was the first one, and then I went to year 10, and then eventually it became a middle school job. So at this present moment in time, because of my age, I'm now just a maths teacher and head of middle school as well. If you look at my 16-year-old careers interview, we were asked what we wanted to do in our future, and actually mine is quite boring because it just says I wanted to be a teacher. I was inspired by my PE teachers myself at the age of 12, 13, and I loved the fact of the job that they did, and I wanted to be them. I was hoping I'd get the qualifications. The idea was if I wasn't going to be a PE teacher, I would become a policeman, but I was too short, and it would then have to go in the armed services. But yeah, the inspiration between me doing this job were two teachers, my PE teacher and actually my maths teacher who I had in GCSE. I've got loads of standout memories for King Edward School. I said there's so many really. But as I say, thinking back, I can remember back to actually my first period that I ever taught. I'd been brought here. I was one of the younger people. We all started, me, a lad called Steve Frost, a lad called Nick Fuller, a lad called Steve Howarth. We all started exactly the same time, and we were all straight out of university. And I got sat down with the gentleman who had taught the sets that I was going to teach. And he taught me through each pupil and said how bad they all were. So I turned up to my year 11 maths lesson with the bottom set, expecting the worst. And it was in, as I say, the present year 11 common room. And I sat in there, and these kids walked in, and they were just amazingly young, I thought, number one, and number two, that they were so quiet and polite. And in that class were people like Mark Pilkington, Steve Manley, Marcus Foster, Conrad Mitchell. And I literally stood up in front of them and said, boys, you are 6 years younger than me, and I'm not expecting you to kowtow down to me and do everything I tell you. We're just going to get on. And to be honest, we had a laugh, and that was the first memory I had. And then obviously all of the amazing tours and all the experiences that we had going away, particularly with a gentleman that used to work here called Andy Weston, talking about him. He's a legend in himself. But I know the lads enjoyed themselves, and the girls when we got together. But us as staff, well, he was just amazing to work with, somebody who I learned a lot from, and someone who actually we talk about to an amazing amount of times, still outside the classroom, and bore people to death with this person called Andy Weston, who we did so many things with. Tours to New Zealand, tours to South Africa, to Sri Lanka, tours to Cardiff, Malta, outdoor ed. The hamster will always be a memory. I won't go into these things. But I could recount millions of things like that, but as we've always said, what goes on tour stays on tour. I obviously loved the school song when we sang it, School of King Edward, School by the Sea.
School of King Edward, school by the sea, dear to our hearts shall thy name ever be. Each of thy sons shall bring honour to thee, School of King Edward.
We sang that in New Zealand once actually, we all learnt it and the lads stood there and sang it with me. However, there is one quote, and it used to be in our office in the PE department, which is now where the IT rooms are. Andy West and me, Steve Williams, were in there together, and it was just a shed, like a cupboard. One day Andy Weston opened the door of his desk and 3 mice jumped out. But anyhow, Andy always talked about this one quote, and he had it stuck up above his desk, and I found it one day once we'd finished, and it's now above mine. I have to just move to the side and pick it up. And it's a quote about mountaineering, I think, but I think it says everything, and it's certainly something Andy taught me to do. And it says, "Let us stop here a little while longer. It is good to rest on the summit and to dream amongst the clouds for a few short moments of one's life." And I always try and say that to students, particularly when we're out somewhere, particularly when we used to take the year 7s, the year 9s out up a mountain. I always just say to them when we got to the top, and Andy used to do this with us, get to the top, before we go, stop and just have a little look around, try and take in what you do. Quite frequently, and particularly nowadays, we rush around and we don't really appreciate what there is around us. And we were being taken to join together, or we were joined together with a group of individuals we didn't really know. When I first came here, we weren't allowed to cross the boundary. The bank that's there to the houses now was the bank to Queen Mary's. I wasn't allowed to go across there as a member of staff. So for them to come here was going to be strange. Fortunately, the likes of Judith Cooper, Mary Winterflood, I'd known because they'd done the outdoor ed with me. We're lucky enough that we do keep in contact through my second headmaster here, Julian Wilde. He has a little coffee club that he keeps with the members of the staff from the old Queen Mary's, King Edward's, and we get together every now and again, and he invites a member of staff every now and again to come for a free lunch or a free dinner, and I've been lucky enough to have that honour bestowed on me a couple of times. So I see them then. I play golf with John Liggett. I keep in touch with a gentleman I didn't work with, but a lot of the older old boys will know, Alan Jones, who's still moving around or find it very, very difficult nowadays because of all the injuries he got after playing so many games for Fylde. Well, as I said right from the start, the first thing I got when I entered the school was how bright and happy the place it was. And so my 3 words would be a happy, caring family.
Our school shall boast as proud a name as any in the land. As year by year we bring her fame, high shall her honour stand. For wisdom, truth and loyalty, and courage shall her sons be known. Where is the school shall claim to be a better than our own? School of King Edward, school by the sea, dear to our hearts shall thy name ever be. Each of thy sons shall bring honour to thee, School of King Edward. May all within our school today be prompt at duty's call, sincere in work and keen in play, and each be true to all. That those who follow us in youth be proud to be where we have been, to work with vigour, love and truth, and hate the false and mean. School of King Edward, school by the sea, dear to our hearts shall thy name ever be. Each of thy sons shall bring honour to thee, School of King Edward.
Yeah, I chose AKS for both my children for a number of reasons. Firstly, I went to the old school that was King Edward's, which obviously forms one of the 3 schools that formed AKS. Had a great time there. Moved away after I left university and only came up 5 years ago, looking around the state schools for primaries, as it was at the time for that far too. Came to the open day here, was bowled over. It was such a great learning environment, and that's just been just shown throughout since the children have been at school for like last 3 and 4 years. So yeah, it's been a great choice. Wouldn't turn it back. And yeah, why did I want to become part of the school? As mentioned, I was at King Edward's from 6-year-old to 18, and got a wealth of experience through that, not just in education. And it was wanting to sort of give something back to the school that had looked after me when I was a child, and also with both my children in school as well. It's always good just to keep an eye on them once in a while as well.